I'm going to just stand here, and the 15 minutes that I have, I'm going to tell you where the future of well-being is going right now based on our understanding of systems biology. The basis of this is that your consciousness is not an epiphenomenon or a byproduct of evolution, but actually your consciousness drives your biology, drives evolution, and drives all experience. It is the basis of everything that we call reality. Our current framework in medicine is based on what we call a reductionist model, and it's also a biological model that's based on looking at the body as a structure. But the model that is emerging, and I don't like to use words east and west because, it doesn't matter if it's east or west. It has to be scientific. You have to find evidence for it, and if it works, who cares whether it's east or west? So the emerging model is that our bodies are not structures, but processes. They're not nouns, they're activities. The physical body that you're using right now to sit on these chairs and listen to my lecture is not the body that you came in with a little while ago before you came into this room. Because even with one breath that you breathe in 10 to the power of 22 atoms, which is 10 followed by 22 zeros, that goes to every cell in your body. With each breath you breathe out, you're breathing out 10 to the power of 22 atoms that are coming from every cell in your body. So at the atomic level, we're all intimately sharing our organs with each other all the time. In fact, you can do some mathematical computations, and you can prove without a doubt that right this moment you have in your body at least 1 million atoms that were once in the body of Christ, or Buddha, or Genghis Khan, or Hitler, or whoever else you want to talk about. It's the same biosphere that's recycling through your body. In just the last 3 weeks, a quadrillion atoms have gone through your body that have gone through the body of every other living species on this planet. So think of a taxi driver in Manhattan, or a tree in Africa, or a squirrel in Siberia, and you have raw material in your body that was there in 3 weeks ago. You are a recycling eco-process. The ecosystem is recycling through your body. Okay, and in 1 year we replaced 98% of all the atoms in our body. So your stomach lining recycles every 5 days. Your skin recycles once a month. Your skeleton, which seems very hard, solid, recycles every 3 months. It's calcium, phosphorus, and other things. Even your DNA, which is genetic memory that tracks the evolution of life for millions of years, the actual raw material of the DNA, the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, recycles every 6 weeks. Okay, so this is very interesting because in 1 year, you've recycled almost all your body. Okay, this is my 2013 model. Last time I came to Southeast Asia, I brought the same suitcase, but not the same body. Okay, if you understand this, then you'll see that the body is actually a process in consciousness. And that process in consciousness influences everything that we call reality. Consciousness differentiates into what we call the movement of natural forces in our body, the same natural forces that exist outside, electromagnetic forces and strong and weak interactions. We are held together by gravity, and these natural forces are recycling, and they influence our behavior, our social interactions, our personal relationships, perceptions, cognition, moods and emotions, environment. They're differentiated aspects of what we call the self meaning consciousness, the ground of our existence. And take me to the next slide. Okay, this is, by the way, our current state of knowledge of the universe. So if this is what is called the cosmic density pyramid. 70% of the universe is dark energy, 25% dark matter, 4% invisible atoms. The rest of the 1%, mostly hydrogen and helium, the visible universe with all the stars, the galaxies, and all the billions of suns and trillions of planets is 0.01% of the universe, okay, which is visible atomic matter. Your body is visible atomic matter. It was manufactured as stardust in the cosmic sphere, but for the most part, we don't know what the rest of the universe is. You know, this huge pyramid that you see, we don't know what it is. Most of it is basically mathematically and experimentally verified, but not through direct evidence because it's invisible. If something is not atomic, then we can't interact with it, okay? And so it's not only in the realm of the unknown, it's actually in the realm of the unknowable. Next slide. This is where our science is today, based on an understanding of disparate disciplines. So, you know, we are seeing in genetic science, we're seeing genetic indeterminism, which means your genes also do not behave isolated. They behave as networks. And they are self-organized networks that interact with other genes, which are also self-organized networks. Neuroplasticity means that every thought, every emotion, every intention, every behavior, every social interaction, every personal relationship, everything you eat, your sleep, your exercise, and your environment are influencing the activity of your genes on and off. Okay, so now there are studies that show that about 500 genes can be turned on or turned off based on your behavior. So if you sleep well, if you exercise, if you meditate, if you have healthy emotions, if you eat properly, and if you practice some kind of mind-body technique, including meditation, but even breathing techniques, you can change the behavior of your genes and your neurons. And one of the things that is being discovered is that irrespective of the disease you have, whether it's cancer or infections or autoimmune illness or degenerative disease, there's a background usually of inflammation, inappropriate inflammation, which is triggered by the activity of genes. It's an exaggerated response to challenges in the environment. And if you have this inflammation, it is kind of it allows the disease to perpetuate itself. And with behavioral changes, which I mentioned a little while ago, you can turn off the bad genes and turn on the good genes within 4 months. We are doing a study right now in our institute measuring telomerase, which is the enzyme that controls your biological age by influencing the length of telomeres through these interventions. And one of the things we have recognized that there's no single intervention that is actually causal, because the body is interdependently co-arising as a result of multiple things that I've mentioned. So genetic indeterminism, reversal of the biological markers of aging. And by reversal, I mean actual reversal, okay? So you can take somebody who's 60 years, and within, say, 6 months, you can introduce them to various techniques where they'll reverse the biological markers with about 15 to 20 years. This is frontier in science right now. So blood pressure, bone density, body temperature regulation, heart rate variability, immune function, skin thickness, hormone levels, sexual activity, hearing, fat content in the body, cholesterol, HDL ratios. These are all the biological markers of aging that everybody now understands. And you can actually reverse them, first by changing expectations, second by expectations of how we'll age in the future. So if you think you're going to get old, then that, or you're going to decrease your physical and mental capacity, that will accelerate. But if you have the idea that every day you're going to increase your physical and mental capacity, that'll have an influence. So perception, looking at the body not as molecular biology, but a network of energy and information. And thirdly, understanding the body as a process instead of a structure. And we have 10 ways that you can do this. Changing perception, good sleep, meditation, mind-body coordination, nutrition, nutritional supplements, flexibility in consciousness, the experience of love. All these things will influence the biological markers of aging. Quantum biology, it simply says the body is at the most fundamental levels waves and particles. And when you look at it as waves and particles, you see that every process is entangled with every other process. The human body has about 100 trillion cells. Each cell performs 100,000 activities every second. So multiply 100 trillion cells, which is more than all the stars in the Milky Way galaxy, coming from stardust. 100 trillion cells, more than all the stars in the Milky Way galaxy, each cell performing 100,000 activities. It's an astronomical number, and yet the body does that. So how does a human body think thoughts, play a piano, kill germs, remove toxins, make a baby all at the same time? Because it's correlated. It's non-locally correlated. It's quantum entangled. And so that brings in some of the things that Menas was talking about, non-locality, measurement problem, wave-particle duality, observer effect, all in this field of pure potentiality, which is the self. The self is a field of pure potentiality. It's a superposition of possibilities. It's an intention field. It's a field of creativity, and it's a field of entanglement, correlation. And our choices actually determine, here these are our choices, determine what happens in the rest of the interdependent co-arising that's happening in the field, which we call our biology. Next slide. So now we also know that there's a connection between the heart and the brain. And in fact, the heart rate variability is the best indicator of what's happening in your life. Really, heart rate variability means the RR interval, the variability between every heartbeat. So the more relaxed you are, the more flexible you are, the more flow you have in your life, your heart rate variability increases. On the other hand, if you're rigid, if you're inflexible, if you have stress, the heart rate variability gets fixed because there's too much adrenaline. And so heart rate variability, the dance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, the neuropeptides in the brain, such as opiates, serotonin, vasopressin, dopamine, oxytocin, these are very interesting neuropeptides because opiates make you feel intoxicated, but they're immunomodulators. They go up in exercise. Serotonin is a reflection of the self-esteem you have. So if you're more confident, your serotonin level will be high, and it's also an indicator of your immune function. Oxytocin and vasopressin are the so-called love hormone, or the bonding hormone, which also influence your immune function. And dopamine is the antidepressant. These are only some of the neuropeptides. There are hundreds of them, actually, but these are the more important ones. The point is your emotions, your feelings, your perception, your neuroendocrine axis, the neuropeptides, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, the activity of the heart and the brain are a holistic, integrated process influenced by all the activity in your life. Let's go to the next slide. And so this is I got this from Scientific American. This is a fMRI of somebody who would be in love. And so you see here what is the neuropeptides here, but you also see the disparate areas of the brain get activated, and they non-locally connect with each other in that this process, for those of you who are neuroscientists, is called binding, which has been a huge problem in trying to understand how different parts of the brain connect with each other without sending energy or information signals. It's quantum at a certain level. Okay, so it's non-local. Next slide. These are slides that I've created a brain map here of all the different factors that influence our physical well-being. And that includes financial well-being, social well-being, career well-being, nutrition, physical well-being, and community well-being. There are ways to measure this. And in fact, we now have data that tells you that this is the best predictor of your future. So career well-being is, do you like what you do? Are you using your strengths? Are you noticed at work? Do your opinions count? Let's go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Social well-being is, do you have happy relationships? Do you smile? Do you laugh? Do you have joy in your life? Next slide. Community well-being, do you feel safe in your community? Are you involved in your community? Are you involved in causes? Next slide. Physical well-being, do you exercise? Do you have enough energy to get through the day? How was your day yesterday? Did you feel rested? Is your physical health, what's your assessment of how your physical well-being is? And next slide, financial well-being. Are you worried about your money? How frequently is it a matter of concern to you? Because it's all obviously going to affect your neuroendocrine and mind-body axis. So based on this, can you go on the next slide? I'll skip this spiritual well-being. This has to do with our fear of death, old age, and suffering in the future. I'll skip this. What I want to tell you is that we have now data where we can predict what's going to happen to a community, to a person, to a society, and to the world, and to a country. So just before I came, I looked up the well-being of South Korea, because the well-being of North Korea is not available to us. They don't allow us to do these studies there. Your country, Korea, is number 20 in the world out of 180 countries. 50% of the people in Korea are thriving, which is a very good sign. They score over 70% in their well-being. The rest, some of them are struggling, and a few of them are suffering. As compared to China, for example, which is number 85 in the world. So even though China's GDP is going up, their well-being scores are going down in these areas. Okay, the number one country in the world right now is Denmark, and Canada is number 2. The United States is number 13. Korea is number 20 out of 180 countries. China is 88, actually, this morning when I checked. These data are from 2011, but we'll be getting new data in a couple of months again. But by and large, these are the figures I have, which is a very good sign for this country, that you're in the top percentile, for well-being in these areas. And this influences the future if we pay attention to these factors. Next slide. Here are the major breakthroughs in a summary. Okay, if we start to rethink, I showed you a slide in the beginning talking about the emerging paradigm. So your body is a process, it's not a structure. Your body should be looked at as an energy and information field from the point of view of physics. And energy and information can be influenced through the 5 senses. So sound, touch, sight, taste, and smell. That's how you influence the energy, through personal relationships, social interaction, but also through thoughts, feelings, emotions, desires, imagination, what we call sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts. They all influence the genetic activity. So your genes are not deterministic. There are only 5% of the population has mutations, which at the moment we don't know anything, we don't know what to do about them, because there's a one-to-one relationship between these mutations and illness. So for Alzheimer's disease, for example, there are about 3 genes that are totally predictive. The rest are not. Okay, for heart disease, actually none of the genes are predictive. They depend on behavior. So the more we understand that genes are not deterministic, you can turn them on and off based on things. You can lengthen your telomeres. We're doing the research on that. And also how you experience time. Because time is a subjective experience. If you're experiencing time in a way that you have what is called time sickness, you're running out of time, then your heart rate speeds up, your adrenaline goes up, your blood pressure goes up, your platelets get sticky, they stick together, you increase inflammation, and then you run out of time, literally. The psychological experience of time determines the biological experience of time. The key to all this is the self, because who's orchestrating this, either subconsciously or consciously, is your own self. Next slide. So here is where I see the future, immediate future. The immediate future is neuroplasticity through neural feedback and bioregulation, also genetic regulation, stem cells and cloning technology, also through using your own stem cells. So you don't have to get embryos. you can coax your own cells through various technologies to go back to what are called pluripotential cells, and then you can direct them through information to replace body parts. This is going to happen soon. So too, cloning will be selective cloning of your own cells, creating new organs, and nanobots. Nanobots are computers. There'll be quantum computers. They'll be the size of, and there is already a lot of work in this, they'll be the size of red cells or white cells, and you will be able to use handheld devices to give instructions to your nanobots so they can clean your arteries, they can clean up your neural networks, they can get rid of toxins, they can stimulate the immune system, etc. So that will lead to genetic modulation and enzyme induction through all the information networks. You start to think of your body as like the internet, okay? It's an extension of your mind as well, because your mind is an embodied and relational process that regulates the flow of energy and information in your body. And this is leading already to the era of what we call personalized medicine. So to conclude, if you look at me, I'm wearing all these biosensors. I have a biosensor here, I have biosensors here. This biosensor is something that is created by a company where I'm sitting on their advisory board. This particular biosensor measures heart rate, it measures skin temperature, skin sweat, it measures caloric expenditure, it measures exercise, it measures sleep, and the amount of deep sleep and light sleep, how many times you wake up, and it measures exercise. Now, the next iteration of this biosensor will include heart rate variability as well, which, as I told you, is the most sensitive way to measure stress. And then what you can do is you can put this through a USB on your computer. These are the biosensors here. There are about 6 of them here. And these other gadgets are also biosensors. I have some biosensors in my pocket as well. And all these are measuring everything that's happening in my biology right now. And the next generation of this will have your medical records. If you've had an angiogram, if you've had a CAT scan, you should be able to see the picture on your computer by just plugging it in the USB. Of course, it's stored in the cloud, and it's dynamic information that you can use to regulate your biology. The era of pharmaceuticals is coming to an end, okay? Pharmaceuticals, well, now we know that 80% of pharmaceuticals that we use are of what is called optional or marginal benefit. That means if you didn't use them, it wouldn't make a bit of a difference to the natural history of the disease or the natural outcome, probably save you money and side effects. Pharmaceuticals are molecules that interfere with molecules. Okay, you have to go deeper. Information and energy is the next step, and then you have to go even deeper into consciousness. So it's matter, energy, information, and consciousness in that order. Okay? And we need to get beyond this idea, east or west, because it's all natural laws, right? And consciousness is part of nature. It's not an outsider in nature. Consciousness is an integral aspect of nature. It's the white elephant in the room that scientists have been ignoring. So I think the future of medicine is consciousness-based biology, information technology, and technologies that will actually quantify the quality of your life. Now, you say, why do I need quantification? Well, possibly you don't, because you're very sensitive to what's happening in your biology. But it helps to get the information. It helps to see that you can actually change what you're getting as digital information. It also helps to connect communities for well-being. So my hope is that the future of technology and the future of medicine and the future of consciousness will all be linked, that we will have this information through social networks so we can help each other bioregulate ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deepak.